For those of you who are aware or not aware, I've been investigating this Utah ritual abuse case, this investigation, since 2020 when it was first announced. You can go to find all of my articles at The Last American Vagabond under my name, Utah Ritualized Sexual Abuse Investigation. And you can find dozens and dozens of reports I've done about the history of Utah ritual abuse in general, as well as within the Mormon Church, and just all kinds of crazy stuff that I encourage you to check out. We first started reporting on this. This was back in, I think it was May 2020 when it was first announced. The Utah County Sheriff's, June 2022. So it happened in May 2022 when the county sheriffs out there in Utah said that they were investigating ritualized child sex abuse. And I'm not going to recap everything as it's not fully relevant to what we're talking about today. So I do encourage you to go back to see my previous articles and videos about this, which you can find at The Last American Vagabond and theconsciousresistance.com. But I wanted to highlight this article. This was the third article I wrote back in June 2022. Utah Ritualized Sexual Abuse Investigation. David Leavitt under investigation for suspicion of human trafficking. So let me get you up to speed. This man right here, for those who are watching on screen, back in 2022, he was the Utah County Attorney. Obviously, as an attorney, he's involved with investigating crimes. And when this announcement by the Utah County Sheriffs about investigating ritualized sexual abuse came about, David Leavitt, very oddly, held a press conference where he said, my wife and I kid you not, guys, he said, my wife and I are not involved in child trafficking. We're not involved in cannibalism or anything like that. And most of the journalists in the media were like, what are you talking about? And he said that he believed him and his wife were going to be accused of such crimes as part of the sheriff's investigation into ritualized sexual abuse. And so I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, but I want you to stay focused with me here for a moment. So this guy, David Leavitt, his father, Dixie Leavitt, former governor of Utah. He's also part of the Leavitt insurance company, I believe it is. They are a very powerful family, not only in Utah, but around the country. And most people don't know anything about them, especially if you're not in Utah. But for those who are in Utah, you understand very clearly the power of the Leavitt family, as well as the Mormon Church itself, which David Leavitt, like many people in Utah, is a part of. And so David Leavitt accused the sheriff's office of playing politics. He said that the investigation they announced was just about trying to make him look bad so he could lose his election that he was running at the time. So David Leavitt comes out and he says, as I mentioned, he says in his press conference that he was not guilty of ritual sexual abuse. He was not guilty of cannibalism. And he claimed that this investigation was going to target him. And he shared a 151-page document titled Victim Statement relating to a 2012 case against a man named David Hamblin, a therapist, for sexually abusing his own children as well as others. And the general accusation is that David Leavitt, the county attorney, as well as David Hamblin, the therapist, are a part of a network, what some people call the Church of Satan, within the Mormon Church. And I know that might be really crazy sounding to some of you, but that's what they apparently call themselves. The only reason we know about this is because there are hundreds and hundreds of pages of these alleged victims who were young girls at the time, describing everything from rape to murder to witnessing people wearing the skin of other dead people on their bodies while they raped and abused young girls, to praying to Lucifer, all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, David Leavitt, the county attorney, he has never officially been charged with anything related to that. But he went and stuck his foot in his mouth, and he got himself kind of a target by saying, hey, I have nothing to do with this. So now this is where it gets a little interesting, and this is where I want your help. I reported on this in the past, like I said, that, let me go back, pull that article one time. So now that I've given you a little bit about who he is, he was actually accused of being involved in human trafficking. Now, let me find that part here. So this was back in 2022. Fox 13, which there was a journalist there named Adam Herberts, who was actually doing good work. Fox 13 reported that David Leavitt may have been implicated in an adoption scheme turned human trafficking investigation. The Fox 13 Investigates team released a video of then Utah County Attorney David Leavitt discussing how he used his political influence to work around the laws to adopt a Native American girl. In the video, David Leavitt says that he brokered a deal with the Northern Cheyenne tribe in Montana by telling them that he could help them get sell some of their buffalo to Ukraine. So there's this very weird Ukrainian connection there. David Leavitt says he went to Ukraine and he told the chief of the Northern Cheyenne tribe, hey, if you let me have this native girl as part of an adoption, I'll help you, broker a buffalo deal with the Ukrainians. David Leavitt in the video says he struck the deal with tribal leadership and was eventually able to convince them to allow the adoption. The little girl is now considered to be David Leavitt's step foster great niece, so in his family. Fox 13 reports that the video was recorded by a documentary filmmaker in 2020 and has since been submitted to Homeland Security investigations as part of a criminal human trafficking investigations. Fox 13 dropped another bombshell involving a Homeland Security investigation against David Leavitt. So this is the man that I'm looking for. His name is Noel Engels, a former analyst with the Homeland Security investigations. He told Fox 13 Investigations that his team had been investigating sexual allegations against David Leavitt for several years. So, like I said, the original reason David Leavitt's even brought up is because he was listed in one of the documents in this separate case about David Hamblin, the therapist who his own daughters say he abused. And they say that David Leavitt, the county attorney, former county attorney now, as well as his own wife, Shalom Leavitt, were involved in this ritualistic abuse of children. And at the same time, you got Noel Engels, who was at the Homeland Security investigations, saying that they've been investigating David Leavitt for years. Engels said that his team had received the video where Leavitt talks about the adoption, and that they added it to the case file on Leavitt as part of their human trafficking investigation. However, 5 months after they received the video, Noel Engels and his team were removed from the case. He filed a whistleblower complaint, and he received a letter from the U.S. Office of Special Counsel in response. The letter from attorney John Yu Young states, "You allege that HSI improperly terminated an investigation into the allegations against current Utah attorney David Leavitt. We emphasize that while the Office of Special Counsel has found a substantial likelihood of wrongdoing based on the information you submitted, our referral to the Secretary for Investigation is not a final determination that allegations are substantiated. This remains an open matter." So basically they're saying, look, we think you may have found a substantial likelihood of wrongdoing, but we're still investigating it. And nevertheless, he says he was wrongfully terminated. He basically says he was removed from the case. And here is where you can see, this is the Fox 13 report. Video raises questions about Utah County attorney adoption of Native American child. Video was entered into evidence as part of human trafficking investigation at David Leavitt. And if you want to see this, again, it'll be in the show notes. And you can hear him. It's a 17-minute clip where he's clearly talking to myself. He says, quote, "I'm thinking to myself, how in the world am I going to do this? Finally, the strategy comes into my head. And if you've got 5 minutes, I'll tell you the story." He's talking to a documentary filmmaker, and he's just an idiot and decides that this is a great thing to tell people. He says he met with the tribal president, and he says, quote, "And I say to him, I'm here for 2 reasons. I said, I'm here to tell you the second reason first, but I'll tell you the first reason second. But before I tell you the second reason, I'll tell you a story." What the hell? I don't know. This guy's talking in circles. David Leavitt talks about the importance of family, and he highlighted his close friendship with former Ukrainian president, Viktor Yushchenko. "Victor and I have this goal of introducing buffalo into Western Ukraine," he recounted. "And you're a sovereign nation," talking to the tribe, "and you have a buffalo herd. And Ukraine is a sovereign nation, and it doesn't have a buffalo herd, but it wants one. So I'm here to see if we can form a bilateral agreement with the people of the Northern Cheyenne and the people of Ukraine to introduce buffalo to Western Ukraine." He says, "At this point, the chief was all ears. And I said, that's the second reason why I'm here. The first reason why I'm here is this. We want to adopt one of your people." And he said that the chief gave him the blessing. He said, but tribal social services did not. And then David Leavitt continues, "Tribal social services looked at us and said, we're not giving you this baby. I just said, you know what? You are shameless. I just let her have it with both barrels. There's such a prejudice in the Native community about a non-Native adopting a Native." Yes, because that's the history, because of the history of colonization and of people, white Americans taking Natives from their families just because they want to, play Native and have a look at us. We got a little token Native baby. And he's sitting there, "Oh, I gave it to her with both barrels. You're shameless because you won't give me this baby." He says in a last-ditch effort, he went back to the tribal president, and he said the president of the tribe said, "Listen, the Leavitts are friends of the tribe. They're assets to the tribe for more than just this." I left, and 5 minutes later, the phone rang, and it was a social worker saying, "I think I figured out a way to get this child to you." David Leavitt said he took home the child that same day in 2017. And the chief himself has declined to comment. At the time of the 2020 interview, he was in prison for fraud in an unrelated case. So David Leavitt goes to this tribal president, Jace Killsback, and says, I'll trade some buffalo to Ukraine for you. You guys can get some money. You help me get this baby. And that's child trafficking. That's violating the laws around adopting Native children. That's also quid pro quo. And that is what got Noel Engels, the Homeland Security investigator, in trouble. Let's check this out. Noel Engels used to be an analyst with Homeland Security Investigations, HSI. His team had been investigating sexual allegations against David Leavitt for several years. Upon receiving the video describing the adoption, they investigated Leavitt for human trafficking. And for those on screen, here's the picture. You can kind of see this is the only picture I've been able to find of this Noel Engels, the Homeland Security investigator. Again, they show the letter he received after he claims he was wrongfully terminated. And yeah, that's basically, so I reported on all that back in 2022. Everything I just shared with you was known back in 2022. And I don't think I quite understood the importance of this man, Noel Engels, how he was leading the investigation against David Leavitt, the former Utah County attorney, who not only we know for certain was involved in illegal adoption of a Native American girl, but was implicated and accused of everything from child abuse, rape, murder, and cannibalism in the related case against David Hamblin, which unfortunately David Hamblin, the charges against him were dropped for a second time in over a decade just earlier this year because there's no justice in Utah. I started to dig back into this whole story. I hope you guys are with me and this is making sense. And then I found this interview from the Whistleblower Network News. I'd never heard of it, whistleblowersblog.org. It's a podcast and a website dedicated to helping whistleblowers. And it's run by a woman named Jane Turner, who herself used to be a whistleblower. This was recorded July 2024, so more than a year old. And I want you to download this podcast, guys, because as I started to investigate this, the podcast disappeared for a couple of months and then it popped back up. Thankfully, I saved it. And for some reason, it's now back on their website. I don't know what to make of that. And I've emailed Jane Turner. I've emailed everybody at the Whistleblower Network News asking if they can put me in touch with Noel Engels, who is the former investigator for Homeland Security Investigations. I've also found him as an advisor on a film company. I've emailed them. I've tried everything I can do to find him. And I am in the process of tracking down his phone number and his location to try to reach out to him. My guess is he's trying to quietly disappear into the shadows, but that's not enough. That's not good enough. Mr. Engels, if you happen to hear this, I might be a small-time independent journalist, but your voice can ring strong and true if you speak up and if you help us break the story about what David Leavitt is up to. In this episode of the Whistleblower of the Week podcast, host Jane Turner speaks with Noel Engels. After spending over 2 decades working for the U.S. government intelligence, law enforcement, and military combat operations, Engels left his role as a criminal analyst at the DHS after filing a whistleblower complaint. He claims he was improperly removed from investigation into human trafficking against Utah County Attorney David Leavitt. He and Turner discussed the shocking details of the case and the retaliation that he faced for speaking up. Highly encourage you guys to listen to this interview with Noel Engels. I do know that he's apparently living in Portland, Maine, or at least that's one of his locations. And I want to make it clear, I'm not asking you guys to go harass him or anything of that sort. Please do not harass this man. He is a whistleblower, and we need whistleblowers to feel like they can come out and speak up. But if you happen to hear this, Mr. Engels, I'm trying to reach you. I'm sure you've seen the emails by now. I'm sure your colleagues have told you that I've reached out to the Whistleblower Network News, and I've reached out to the film company where you're an advisor. I am trying to see if you are willing to come forward. I recognize you might be concerned for your safety or your privacy, and I completely empathize with that. But we need people like you to speak up, to be a voice, because unfortunately, in my work, I've investigated similar cases like the case of the Finders cult, and there is a Department of Homeland Security customs agent, Ramon Martinez, who knows the truth about the Finders, but he is also unwilling to speak publicly. And if people like you don't speak up publicly, these stories are going to continue to go on and we'll never get to the truth. So please, Mr. Engels, if you hear this, if somebody knows him, reach out to me. Let's talk off the record, on the record, whatever you're willing to share. Give me some clues, give me some tips so I can keep digging into this, because right now, David Leavitt is walking free. and the young Native girl is not with her family based on an illegal adoption. And in fact, there is reports of her family saying they want her back. The last thing I want to say on this case, let me just go ahead and change back over here, is that another reason this is important for you to come forward, Mr. Engels, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that David Leavitt and his wife, Shalom, are just walking free. After he lost the Utah County attorney election, he moved to Scotland. And now they have 1.1 million followers on Instagram at Knockderry Castle. They moved to Scotland, and it says, we're following our dream of restoring a castle. Follow along as we uncover the magic of Knockderry Castle. And you can see video and pictures. There's David Leavitt right there on screen, and him and his wife, they moved to Scotland. They bought this castle with all their wealth, and they're doing a remodel. And now they've got friends and people, followers all over the world following their journey to keep up with this. And those people have no idea who they really are. So again, on Instagram, that's Knockderry Castle. I'll put it in the show notes. That's Knock, K-N-O-C-K, Knockderry Castle. Go comment on there if you can and ask them, hey, Mr. Leavitt, what happened to the Native American girl you adopted? Hey, Mr. Leavitt, why are you under investigation for human trafficking? This guy should not be allowed to just go on there and become a freaking, remodeling a house, remodeling a castle influencer. We need to do better than that. And unfortunately, the dude is still walking free.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.